A few weeks ago, I texted my psychiatrist and told her that I really needed to meet. I've been on psych meds for over a decade now. And for some reason, it is still so hard every time I have to reach out for help when it comes to my medication. This time around, I was pretty sure I needed to up some of my medications. It had been about a year since my twins were born. And the last time I had a baby, right around that 1 year mark is when my pregnancy hormones started to go back to normal and my regularly scheduled depression started to come back. And I felt that kind of happening again. So I knew I had to reach out. I knew I deserved help. I knew that medication could help. So why was it still so hard to ask? Let's just dive right into the stigma that exists against psychiatric medication. What's really frustrating about the stigma around psychiatric medication is that even in mental health spaces, you're going to find a lot of people who are very against them. So where does this come from? Why do so many people hate psychiatric medication, or why are we so afraid of it? I think there's 3 aspects to this particular stigma. A lack of understanding of how mental illness actually works, a fear of losing control of yourself or others, and then also a major distrust of big pharma, especially in the United States. So let's start with a lack of understanding of how mental illness works. There are a lot of people who simply don't understand mental illness either because they don't experience it or because they do and they were taught to just toughen up and deal with it, and so that's how they think everybody else should have to deal with it too. The truth is, for a long time, we didn't have very much education around mental illness or mental health. And then when we did start to get education about it, it was often misleading or inaccurate because we were still learning. It was a very new science. Heck, psychology is still a pretty new science, and a pretty soft one at that. The way we currently understand mental illness is through the biopsychosocial model, which is a combination of biological factors, psychological factors, and social factors. Which means, yeah, serotonin, is it likely linked to depression? Probably, but is that the only thing causing your depression? Probably not. There's also your personality you were born with, the way your personality has been shaped by the things that have happened to you, and collective traumas like living through multiple genocides and late-stage capitalism. Many people who don't experience mental illness have nothing to compare it to. They have no frame of reference for understanding it, and so they try to compare it to the next best thing, the next closest thing that they do experience. So if someone says, hey, I have generalized anxiety disorder, they have no concept for what that means, and so instead they try to compare it to that one time they felt anxiety before a test. And you know, that sucked, but they got through it. And so they kind of project that mentality onto other people. Like, yeah, of course anxiety sucks, but like we all experience it and we all get through it. When in reality, generalized anxiety disorder is so much different than experiencing anxiety here or there now and again. One of the biggest reasons for stigma is simply that human beings are not always super great at empathy. Now, I'm autistic, so people expect me to struggle with empathy, but I actually think empathy can be tricky for a lot of people, especially when we're trying to have empathy for someone going through something that we've never been through. So before you judge somebody when it comes to their psychiatric medication choices, please try to remember that they might be going through something that you have no concept of. Okay, next, let's talk about this fear around a lack of control of yourself or others. A lot of people are really afraid to start taking psychiatric medication because they feel like it will change them. It'll turn them into someone they're not. And this is a super valid fear. This can happen. But at the same time, it's also very possible for medication to turn you into the person that you are. That's been my experience when I've been on the right medication for me. But I do understand there is a fear of losing control, of not being in charge of who you are anymore, giving control over your life to a psychiatrist who maybe doesn't even know you that well or only takes like 15-minute meetings with you. Then there's the fear of losing control of others. Like, oh, well, if they're allowed to go take medication for their struggles, like what does that say about our society as a whole, right? Like there's this big fear that as a society we're becoming weaker or like more dependent on things that help us, when in reality humans have always been dependent on the things that help them. We're just really good at making things that help us even better. And finally, the third reason that there's a lot of stigma around psychiatric medication is a big distrust of big pharma. Big pharma is basically the pharmaceutical industry, and there are plenty of good reasons to distrust them. For example, did you know that of the 170 panel members that were in charge of approving the DSM-4, which was the previous version of the DSM, 95 had financial connections to the pharmaceutical industry? What does this mean? It means that we might be writing diagnoses specifically to sell drugs, and that is, you know, not great. The pharmaceutical industry should be there to help support and provide treatment and relief. It shouldn't be there to tell us what it is we're dealing with. That's not pharmaceuticals' job. But under our current system, that is a little bit how it's been working. There's also the problem of people being forced to take medication against their will, which is never, ever okay. My personal stance on medication is very neutral. It didn't always used to be. I used to be very pro medication and like everybody should be on it. And that's just because it worked so well for me. And I didn't understand why people would want to struggle rather than feel better. But I'm starting to realize a couple of things. First of all, that medication doesn't make everyone feel better. Not everybody needs medication. And sometimes people have been taking medication in a way that has harmed them. And as a result, they really want to try alternative options. But most importantly, what I've realized is that autonomy comes before all else. You should always be able to choose how you deal with your own mental health. For me, that absolutely looks like utilizing medication, but it also looks like utilizing therapy, EFT tapping, ice rolling, weighted blankets. I use all kinds of tools, and I think everybody should use every tool that feels right for them. And if medication is a tool that you want to use, that's amazing. And if it's not, that's amazing. So all of that is the reason why I had such a hard time texting my psychiatrist the other day. I knew I needed help. I knew I needed an adjustment on my medications. I knew that I was struggling in a way that I shouldn't have to struggle. I knew all of that, but I still felt so silly texting her and saying, I'm having a hard time, can we please meet? And all of this struggle was likely due to my hormones. The first time I had a kid, I didn't have any postpartum depression for the first year, and it was amazing. But did you know the postpartum period is actually 2 years long? And it was right around that 1 year mark that postpartum depression came around and kicked my ass. I felt disconnected from my baby and from my husband and from the rest of my family and from my friends. I didn't see the point in anything anymore. Everything felt really gray and pointless and stupid. Everything felt stupid to me. It was just so dumb. Everything about existing felt ridiculous in the most painful way. And probably most of all, I really didn't like myself all of a sudden. I really felt like I was a terrible mother and a terrible partner and a terrible therapy patient and a terrible business owner. And I was just this really, really bad, icky, disgusting person. So a couple of weeks ago, when I noticed some of this stuff start to creep back in, I was like, okay, we need to ask for some help here. When I talked to my psychiatrist, she talked to me about potentially adding a new medication that has been known to help, especially with treatment-resistant depression. And I'm very open to trying new medications, but I was hesitant because I was like, well, but I don't always struggle. It's not all the time. It's really just like a week or two out of the month that are just so bad. And as I was talking to her about it, and when I talked to my therapist later, we realized I have something called PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. PMDD typically looks like that week before your cycle starts is just hell on earth. It's when your mental health just falls apart. And for me, this especially looks like agitated depression. Agitated depression is basically when you have all the thoughts and feelings of depression. So like, I'm worthless, the world is pointless, everything is stupid, and I'm alone, and everyone hates me, and whatever. But it comes with this enormous amount of energy. So instead of lying on the couch being like, everything is stupid and I hate it, you're like furiously pacing your house. Everything is stupid and I need to do something and I feel so angry. And it's really hard to deal with. It's really, frankly, can be dangerous because sometimes when you're in that headspace, the thing you want to do about it is get rid of yourself. And you have the energy to do it, which is really scary sometimes. So we realized that's what was going on with me. That's why I felt so awful for like a part of the month, but not all the time, but it was like every single month, which made it feel like it was all the time, even though it wasn't. And so we realized it was PMDD, and there was actually a really helpful medication regimen that she could recommend for me. I'm not going to share it here because I'm not a doctor and I'm not qualified to give medical advice. If you think you have PMDD, you should reach out to your doctor and see if they can suggest a regimen that might work for you. But what I really loved was that I was able to come to my psychiatrist, tell her what was going on with me. She suggested something. I said, yes, but maybe not that. And she listened. A good psychiatrist doesn't just shove pills down your throat. A good psychiatrist works with you and ultimately lets you make the decision about what pills you decide to take. And good psychiatrists like that exist. I've had several over the years, and they're really amazing. I really hope this video has taken some of the fear out of asking for help, especially when it comes to psychiatric meds. If you want to learn more about PMDD, I really encourage you to check out this interview with my friend Jasmine, who also has PMDD and runs a whole business around helping people who experience it. And I will see you all next time.